In the whispering eaves of Eldwood Forest, where the trees leaned like conspirators and the mist clung to the underbelly of the world, there stood a ramshackle inn that defied the encroaching wilds. Its name was scratched into a weathered beam above the door, Wolf's Hearth. To the weary traveler, it appeared as a beacon of warmth, a squat stone building with a thatched roof sagging under the weight of ivy, its chimney belching wood smoke that smelled of pine and promise. Lanterns flickered in the windows, casting golden pools onto the rutted path, and the faint strum of a lute promised ale and stories by the fire. But to those who knew the forest's secrets, Wolf's Hearth was no sanctuary. It was a lure, a velvet trap woven from the threads of hospitality and hunger. And its keeper? Elara Voss, a woman whose smile could charm the stars from the sky, but whose eyes gleamed with the feral gold of the full moon. Elara had not always been the mistress of this den. Born in the shadow of the capital's spires, she was the daughter of a baker and a seamstress, her days filled with the scent of rising dough and the chatter of market stalls. Life was predictable, if threadbare, until the night of the crimson eclipse, when the veil between worlds thinned and the forest called her name. It began with a fever. Elara, then 22, had ventured too far into Eldwood chasing a lost ewe from her father's flock. The trees closed in like jaws, and she collapsed amid a circle of ancient standing stones, their surfaces etched with runes that pulsed like veins. There, in the throes of delirium, she met him, the old wolf, a spectral beast with fur like midnight and eyes that held the weight of forgotten epochs. "You hunger for more than bread, child," he rumbled, his voice a growl that echoed in her bones. "The city starves you. The wilds offer freedom, teeth and fire, kin and cunning. Swear to me, and I shall make you whole." Elara, half mad with thirst and terror, bit her tongue until blood welled and whispered, "I swear." The pact sealed with a bite, not to her flesh, but to her soul. She awoke at dawn, naked and shivering, with the taste of iron on her lips and a savagery uncoiling in her gut. The ewe lay eviscerated at her feet, its entrails steaming in the chill air. She fled home, but the change came with the next full moon, bones cracking like dry twigs, fur sprouting in waves of agony and ecstasy, and a howl that shattered the night. Her family, pious folk, called it a curse from the saints. They drove her out with torches and prayers, branding her a beast unfit for holy ground. Elara wandered the fringes of Eldwood, surviving on rabbits and rage, until she stumbled upon the ruins of Wolf's Hearth. Abandoned decades ago after a monster attack, whispers said it was a werewolf's rampage. She claimed it as her own. The forest, in its capricious mercy, gifted her scraps, a rusted cauldron here, a clutch of wild herbs there. And with them, a revelation. Cooking was her anchor. In the moon-crazed nights, when the wolf clawed for release, the rhythm of chopping onions and stirring stews grounded her. The sizzle of fat in the pan drowned out the howls in her head. She experimented wildly, venison haunches glazed with elderberry reduction, mushroom ragouts simmered over coals until they wept umami tears. Each dish was a defiance, a way to reclaim her humanity one savory bite at a time. Word spread among the forest's denizens, the wolf woman who fed the lost. Goblins bartered truffles for stew, dryads traded moonbloom petals for bread. But Elara's ambitions grew.
Listen everyone, the Whispering Caves hold the key to our next adventure, but we must act quickly. There's danger lurking within.
Scrounge when she could entice. She hung a sign, lit the lanterns, and waited for the fools who dared the woods. The first patrons were unwitting, a pair of poachers, reeking of cheap gin and bravado. They stumbled in at dusk, bellies rumbling, and Elara served them heaping bowls of her signature forester's folly, a hearty venison stew laced with nightshade, just enough to loosen tongues and limbs. As they slurped and boasted of their kills, she listened, her wolf ears twitching beneath her illusion of humanity. "The White Knights ride tomorrow," one slurred, "hunting the beast that took old Harlan. Elara smiled, refilling their mugs with mead that burned like liquid fire. "Tell me more," she purred. By midnight, they slept like stones, and she slipped into the night, her form twisting into fur and fawn. The beast they hunted? Herself, of course. But with their whispers, she laid ambushes, pitfalls veiled in moss, snares baited with illusory gold. The knights never returned, their tabards left as trophies above the hearth. It was a game, delicious and deadly. The inn thrived on the edge of peril, drawing adventurers with tales of glory and gold in the depths of Eldwood. Elara welcomed them all, noble white knights in gleaming plate, rogues with daggers like silver smiles, mages clutching grimoires like lovers. She fed them well, learned their quests, and sent them forth, into the clutches of the forest monsters. A hobgoblin here, a spectral wisp there, all allies in her growing pack, bound by shared meals and midnight oaths. By her third year, Wolf's Hearth was legend. The common room buzzed with life, oaken tables scarred from tankards, a massive hearth where flames danced like imps, and shelves groaning under jars of preserves, pickled wirm eggs, honeyed thornberries, elven dreamroot. Elara's recipes filled a leather-bound tome, its pages stained with grease and blood, lunar lamb shank for the bold, slow-roasted with garlic and wolfsbane to temper the beast within, enchanter's pie, a flaky crust hiding razor clams and riddles that bent the mind. Yet solitude gnawed at her, sharper than any fawn. The wolf craved a pack, not just prey. And so, on a harvest moon, as leaves turned to fire, fate delivered her first true companion. The door crashed open on a gust of autumn wind, admitting a figure cloaked in emerald velvet and mischief. Finn, Quill, bard extraordinaire, swept into Wolf's Hearth like a melody unfinished. His lute slung across his back like a lover's arm, his boots caked in the mud of a dozen trails, and his grin wide enough to swallow secrets. Behind him trudged a hulking shape, Sir Garrick Thorne, Knight of the Silver Order, his white tabard pristine despite the road's grime, his broadsword humming with enchanted steel. "Ho, innkeep!" Finn called, shaking rain from his auburn curls. "We've tales to trade for trenchers. This noble lummox here slew a basilisk at dawn, eyes like emeralds, breath like brimstone. I sang its death rattle into a ballad already." Elara emerged from the kitchen, wiping flour-dusted hands on her apron. Her illusion held firm, a comely woman of 25, with chestnut hair pinned in a loose braid and eyes the color of storm clouds. No hint of the gold beneath. "Slaying, you say? Then you deserve my finest. Basilisk's bane, roast fowl stuffed with sage and serpentine root, to purge the venom from your veins." Garrick grunted, his helm tucked under one arm, revealing a face chiseled from granite and scarred by a wirm's lash. "No poison in your house, lass. We've coin for clean beds and cleaner fare." His voice was a rumble, like thunder over hills, but his eyes softened as they met hers. Knights, for all their steel, were suckers for a warm hearth. She led them to a corner table, the fire's glow gilding their edges. As she ladled stew and sliced crusty loaves, Finn spun his yarn, the basilisk's lair in the whispering caves, Garrick's heroic charge, the bard's timely song of shatter that cracked its scales. Elara laughed in all the right places, her wolf nose twitching at the undercurrents, fear in Garrick's sweat, ambition in Finn's flourish. These were no poachers, they sought the heart of Eldwood, a crystal said to grant dominion over beasts. Monsters aplenty in these woods, she mused, pouring ale that foamed like Sirac. Tread lightly, sirs. The trees have ears, and the shadows teeth. Finn leaned in, his green eyes sparkling. Ah, but shadows flee from song. Play with me, innkeep. Your voice carries the lilt of the wilds, sing of lost loves or vengeful spirits. Elara hesitated. Music stirred the wolf, unraveled her control. But refusal bred suspicion. She hummed a fragment, an old lullaby of moon and marrow, her voice low and throaty, weaving through the room like smoke. The other patrons, a grizzled dwarf nursing a pint, a veiled sorceress scribbling runes, fell silent, entranced. Finn joined with his lute, their duet a tapestry of sorrow and seduction. Garrick watched, mesmerized, his gauntlet hand inching toward hers across the table. "You've a gift, mistress. What calls a siren like you to this forsaken fringe?" "The forest chose me," she replied, evading the gold flicker in her gaze. "As it chooses all who linger. Tomorrow's path, seek the glimmering glade. The heart whispers there, or so the winds say." They retired late, bellies full and heads fuzzy from her dreamweaver wine, a subtle brew of poppy and persuasion. In the small hours, Elara slipped upstairs to her chamber, a loft above the kitchen where herbs hung like talismans. The moon hung fat and silver, tugging at her blood. She barred the door, but the change came swift, skin rippling, claws curling from nails, muzzle elongating with a wet crack. The wolf paced, whining for release, but Elara leashed it with will alone. Not tonight. Not with guests worth keeping. Dawn brought porridge and plans. Garrick sparred in the yard, his blade whistling through dew-kissed air, while Finn lounged by the well, composing verses about the wolf-eyed wench of the woods. Elara watched from the window, her heart a tangle of hunger and hope. These two, they smelled of loyalty, of pack potential. The knight's honor could guard her doors, the bard's tongue, spin her legends. But trust was a fragile spice, easily spoiled. As they saddled their mounts, a dappled mare for Finn, a warhorse like forged thunder for Garrick, Elara pressed pouches into their hands, dried meats, a map etched on birch bark. Follow the brook to the glade. But beware the willow witch, she trades beauty for bones. Garrick clasped her forearm, his grip iron and invitation. We'll return with the heart, and tales to make your fire burn brighter. Swear it, Elara Voss. Swear, she echoed, the old wolf's pact thrumming in her veins. As they vanished into the mist, she turned to her tome, inking a new recipe, Knight's Valor Tart, venison pasty with rosemary and resolve, to steel the spine against shadows. But the forest had other plans. That eve, as Elara stirred a pot of enchanter's pie, a shadow slunk through the back door. Not man, not beast, a lithe figure in mottled leathers, hood drawn low, daggers glinting like fangs. A scout, by the sigil on his bracer, the order's eye, watchful and white. You serve them stew and send them to slaughter, the scout hissed, his voice silk over steel. The silver order knows your game, wolf bitch. Harlan was one of ours, gutted like game. Surrender the inn, or we'll burn it with you inside. Elara's ladle stilled. The wolf surged, but she cloaked it in calm. Harlan came poaching my hens. Accidents happen in the wilds. Sit. Share my pie. Perhaps you'll see the folly in flames. He sneered, but hunger won. As he devoured the flaky crust, razor clam slicing his gums unnoticed, Elara wove her questions. The order mustered in the capital, 50 knights strong, to purge Eldwood's plague. Garrick was their vanguard, Finn their herald. The scout choked mid-bite, riddles blooming in his mind, asterisk what walks on 4 legs at dawn, but devours its own tail, asterisk, and slumped, ensnared by dreamroot. She bound him in the cellar, not with chains, but with a hayas bread laced with binding time. Sleep, she murmured, and dream of mercy. Then, to the night, a howl, soft as a lover's sigh, summoning her allies. Goblins scuttled from burrows, dryads uncoiled from oaks. The inn would stand, but the game escalated. No longer poachers or strays, now, an army loomed. Weeks blurred into a frenzy of flower and fangs. Elara's swelled with unlikely souls, a one-eyed orc blacksmith fleeing debtor's noose, hammering armor from scrap, a flock of pixies who darted like sparks, pollinating her herb garden for sips of dew-distilled gin. The common room echoed with laughter and lies, the kitchen a cauldron of creation. She discovered new recipes in the chaos, asterisk orc's iron stew asterisk, tough roots and tougher love, simmered till tender, pixie dust buns, flaky pastries dusted with glittering spores that induced giggles and visions. The werewolf within reveled. Full moons brought revels, patrons transformed by her bruise into temporary beasts, howling choruses under the stars, only to wake human and hungover, swearing secrecy. Ilara's pack grew, not of blood, but bond. Finn returned first, alone and wild-eyed, Garrick's horse trailing riderless. The glade was a trap, he gasped, collapsing by the hearth. Willows wove walls of thorn, whispering madness. Garrick fought like a god, slew 3 treants with bare hands, but the witch claimed him. Took his blade, his breath. I barely escaped with this. He flung a shard of crystal onto the table, pulsing with emerald light, the heart splinter. Ilara's heart twisted, wolf and woman warring. Garrick, lost. The knight who saw her, not the beast. She snatched the shard, its warmth searing her palm like accusation. You left him. Finn's face crumpled, Bard's mask cracking. Sung him a dirge to dull the pain, Thorn's lament *, but the witch dragged him to her bower. Said he'd make a fine throne of bone. Tears carved tracks in road dust. I came for aid, Ilara. Your woods, your wolves, they heed you. She paced, claws itching beneath nails. The old wolf chuckled in her mind, * claim them all, pup. Night, bard, forest, feast or forge, * aloud, she snapped, the order marches. Their scouts spilled it all. If we save your thorn, we war with white steel. Finn strummed a mournful chord, then war with songs. I'll rally the rogues, ballads of the heart's heroine, drawing rogues and rebels. You cook the feast that binds them. It began at midnight. Ilara baked rebellion loaf, a massive rye will infused with loyalty lichen, enough to feed 50. The scent wafted on winds conjured by the sorceress patron, now unveiled as Mira the Veil Weaver, her face a mosaic of tattoos that shifted like sand. Goblins gnawed crusts, swearing fealty, pixies swirled in sugar-dusted frenzy, pledging pranks on patrols. By dawn, a war council convened. The orc, Grimgut, sketched defenses, spike pits veiled by illusion vines, ballistae from scavenged carts. Mira divined paths through scrying steam from Ilara's cauldron. And Finn? He composed Ode to the Wolf Widow, a tune that twisted on tongues, turning tavern tales to recruitment cries. Ilara led the foray that dusk, the shard clutched like a talisman. The pack, 20 strong, a motley of misfits, slipped through brambles to the Willow Witch's domain. The glade shimmered, deceptive beauty, silver birches bowing like courtiers, fireflies tracing lewd dances. But Ilara's nose pierced the glamour, wrought beneath, blood iron tang. The witch awaited, a sylph of splintered elegance, skin like birch bark, hair a cascade of weeping willows, eyes black as root rot. Garrick hung ensnared in her vines, tabard torn, body slack but breathing, alive, enthralled, a puppet knight with crystal veins threading his flesh. Ah, the she-wolf, the witch crooned, voice a rustle of leaves. Come for your plaything. The heart beats in him now, mine to command. Join me, and we'll weave the world in green and grief. Ilara snarled, illusion shattering. Fur rippled, bones popped, and she stood tall as a dire wolf, gold eyes blazing. The hearth feeds, not fetters. Release him, or taste my pack's hunger. Battle erupted in whispers and whirls. Pixies dusted the witch's eyes with blindness spores, goblins swarmed her roots, gnawing with rust-forged teeth. Mira hurled veils of shadow, tangling vines in ethereal nets. Finn sang shatter song, notes like arrows cracking crystal. Grimgut charged, axe cleaving treants like cordwood. Ilara lunged, jaws snapping for the witch's throat, but thorns lashed, barbs dipping into venom that burned her blood. She rolled, tasting earth and enmity, and hurled the shard like a spear. It struck true, embedding in the witch's breast, heart calling to heart. The sylph shrieked, form unraveling into mulch and malice, vines withering to ash. Garrick slumped free, gasping, eyes clearing as the crystal's grip broke. Ilara, wolf, he whispered, hand to her muzzle, unafraid. She shifted back, naked and trembling, for melting to skin. Always was. Can you stomach it, knight? He pulled her close, armor cold against her warmth. I've slain dragons. A she-wolf's the least of my sins, and the best of my saviors. The pack hooped, claiming the glade's spoils, glowing fruits, woven wards. Finn capered, loot alight. To the hearth. We'll bake victory into bread. By dawn, a war council convened. The orc, Grimgut, sketched defenses, spike pits veiled by illusion vines, ballistae from scavenged carts. Mira divined paths through scrying steam from Alara's cauldron. And Finn? He composed Ode to the Wolf Widow, a tune that twisted on tongues, turning tavern tales to recruitment cries. Alara led the foray that dusk, the shard clutched like a talisman. The pack, 20 strong, a motley of misfits, slipped through brambles to the Willow Witch's domain. The glade shimmered, deceptive beauty, silver birches bowing like courtiers, fireflies tracing lewd dances. But Alara's nose pierced the glamour, wrought beneath, blood iron tang. The witch awaited, a sylph of splintered elegance, skin like birch bark, hair a cascade of weeping willows, eyes black as root rot. Garrick hung ensnared in her vines, tabard torn, body slack but breathing, alive, enthralled, a puppet knight with crystal veins threading his flesh. Ah, the she-wolf, the witch crooned, voice a rustle of leaves. Come for your plaything. The heart beats in him now, mine to command. Join me, and we'll weave the world in green and grief. Alara snarled, illusion shattering. Fur rippled, bones popped, and she stood tall as a dire wolf, gold eyes blazing. The hearth feeds, not fetters. Release him, or taste my pack's hunger. Battle erupted in whispers and whirls. Pixies dusted the witch's eyes with blindness spores, goblins swarmed her roots, gnawing with rust-forged teeth. Mira hurled veils of shadow, tangling vines in ethereal nets. Finn sang shatter song, notes like arrows cracking crystal. Grimgut charged, axe cleaving treants like cordwood. Alara lunged, jaws snapping for the witch's throat, but thorns lashed, barbs dipping into venom that burned her blood. She rolled, tasting earth and enmity, and hurled the shard like a spear. It struck true, embedding in the witch's breast, heart calling to heart. The sylph shrieked, form unraveling into mulch and malice, vines withering to ash. Garrick slumped free, gasping, eyes clearing as the crystal's grip broke. Alara, wolf, he whispered, hand to her muzzle, unafraid. She shifted back, naked and trembling, for melting to skin. Always was. Can you stomach it, knight? He pulled her close, armor cold against her warmth. I've slain dragons. A she-wolf's the least of my sins, and the best of my saviors. The pack hooped, claiming the glade's spoils, glowing fruits, woven wards. Finn capered, loot alight. To the hearth. We'll bake victory into bread. Word of the glade's fall raced ahead of them, carried on pixie wings and bards' ballads. Wolf's hearth brimmed with new blood, hedge knights disillusioned with the order's zeal, elven archers bartered from border skirmishes, even a golem chef unearthed from ruins, its stone hands kneading dough like clay. Alara's tome overflowed, asterisk witches woe soup asterisk, a restorative broth of nettle and nectar, purging poisons, Garrick's gauntlet, iron-seared stakes to fortify the frame. Garrick integrated seamlessly, his sword now guarding the gate, his counsel tempering her fury. Knights found them by the fire, his head in her lap as she traced scars, whispering of saints and sins. The order sees monsters in mirrors, he murmured. I see a queen. Finn, ever the spark, organized feasts that doubled as drills, mead-fueled melees where laughter laced with lobs of bread. Mira schooled Alara in subtler magics, infusions that bent wills without breaking them. Grimgut forged fongforks, utensils that doubled as dirks. But the Silver Order came at equinox, a tide of white cloaks and war cries, 500 strong under High Justiciar Vesper Kane. Tall and terrible, Kane rode a destrier of pearl, his mace crowned with saintly thorns. Banners snapped like judgments, purged the profane. They encircled the inn at dawn, catapults groaning, priests chanting litanies that withered wards. Traitor Thorn! Cain bellowed from the palisade. You've bedded with beasts. Surrender the witch, or we'll salt the earth and sow your bones. Garrick stood atop the roof, tabard defiantly grayed. The only witch here is your blind faith, Vesper. Eldwood harbors no plague, only those the world cast out. Begone, or taste our welcome. Arrows flew, but Alara's defenses held, pixie illusions conjuring phantom hordes, goblin sappers undermining siege lines. The golem hurled boulders baked in the oven's heat, shattering shields. Finn's siege symphony sowed discord, knights weeping for phantom mothers, horses bolting at unheard howls. From the kitchen battlements, Alara directed the counter, volleys of silverbane scones, pastries packed with wolfsbane powder that blistered pious lips. Feed them our fury, she roared, her form half-shifted, claws kneading catapults of dough that exploded into sticky snares. The siege dragged days into delirium. Cain's forces pressed, breaching the outer yard, but the inn's heart held. Mira veiled the hearth in mists, hiding reinforcements, dryad allies coiling from the tree-lean, orc clans thundering from hills. Garrick dueled champions at the gate, his blade singing Thorn's oath, a rune-etched edge that drank zealotry. Nights were for respite, feasts in the cellar, where Alara unveiled Unity Uprising, a grand paella of forest bounty, clams from brook, venison from hunt, spices smuggled by sprite. Stories flowed like wine, Grimgut's forged tales, Finn's ribald rhymes. Alara, wedged between Garrick and Finn, felt the pack's pulse, her pulse. The wolf no longer clawed, it danced. On the seventh dawn, betrayal bit. The scout from her cellar, freed by a bribed pixie, struck from shadows, dagger aimed at Alara's back as she stirred dawn's gruel. Garrick intercepted, steel meeting flesh, but the blade grazed true, venom searing his side. No. Alara howled, wolf form erupting. She tore the scout asunder, crimson spray painting the flags. Cain's horns blared retreat, but victory soured. Garrick paled, sweat beating like dew on marble. Mira brewed antidotes, but the poison was saint-forged, unyielding. Only the heart, she whispered. The full crystal, reforged. Finn paled. The witch's bower, shards remain. I'll fetch it. Alone. Alara growled. With song as shield. He kissed her brow, lute in hand, and vanished into dawn. Garrick lingered 2 days, fever dreaming of white halls and wolf eyes. Don't mourn me, he rasped, gripping her hand. Build the pack. Be the hearth. She wept then, human tears mingling with lupin snarls. On the pyre that night, Inn's woodpile warded against eyes, she burned his tabard, scattering ashes to the wind. The order slunk away, routed by grief gorilla and goblin grit, but Cain vowed return, the wolf will bay her last at solstice. Alara rebuilt, recipes her requiem, Thorn's thorn bread, crust spiked with resilience rose, baked hard as oath. The inn grew, annexes sprouting like mushrooms, stables for spectral steeds, a greenhouse of glowing fungi. Patrons multiplied, bards aping Finn's flair, knights trading silver for grey. But loss hollowed her. The wolf paced, pack incomplete. Winter gripped Eldwood like a jealous lover, snow mantling the world in hush. Wolf's hearth hunkered warm, its lights a defiant constellation. Alara's discoveries deepened, a truffle hunt unearthed lunar truffles, fungi that amplified shifts, letting her control the change mid-moon. She penned Moonmend Mead, a cordial that healed under lupin light. Finn returned at Yule, half-frozen, clutching the heart, whole, humming. The bower bled shards like tears, he panted. Sung it back to form, asterisk heart's harmony star. But Cain's spies dogged me. Solstice nears, they'll strike then, with fire from the saints. Alara crushed him in embrace, wolf scent mingling with bard's musk. You've packed now. Rest. Revel. Solstice dawned bloody. Cain's host swelled, thousandfold, with siege engines blessed by bishops, catapults lobbing holy naphtha. Priests encircled, chanting exorcism eternal, air crackling with divine ire. The inn trembled, wards fraying like old cloth. Elara rallied from the roof, furred and fierce, heart pulsing at her throat like a second pulse. For the hearth. For the lost. The pack surged, golem guardians, dryad dragoons, pixie plagues. Grimguts forges belched flame, hurling molten defiance. Mira wove tempests, veils turning to vortices. Cain charged the gate, mace shattering oak. Abomination, he thundered, eyes fanatic fire. Your den ends in ash. Elara met him in the yard, wolf form colossal, jaws agape. They clashed, mace glancing ribs, claws raking plate. He was relentless, thorns drawing blood that steamed on snow. Saints judge you, beast. But the heart sang, and Finn's voice joined, asterisk finale of Fang's asterisk, a crescendo that cracked Cain's faith. Knights faltered, weapons dropping as ballads bared their doubts, orphans made monsters, crusades for coin. Mira struck the blow, a veil dagger piercing Cain's gorget, heart's light unraveling his zeal into whispers. He fell, not dead, but broken, whispering of mercy as Elara's jaws closed on his mace, splintering saint steel. The rout was rapture. Survivors fled, banners trampled. The pack claimed the field, armor for anvils, horses for herds, recipes from rations, asterisk justiciar's jambalaya asterisk, a spicy slop redeemed with saffron and spite. As moons waxed, Elara stood amid revels, Finn at her side, lute entwined with howl. Garrick's ghost lingered in every laugh, every lifted tankard. The inn expanded, a grand hall for grander feasts, wings for wandering wolves. She penned the final recipe, Pack's promise, a stew of all souls, venison and victory, herbs and heart. To kin, she toasted, gold eyes gleaming. To the wilds that welcome. And in Eldwood's embrace, Wolf's hearth burned eternal, a beacon for the bitten and the bold. Years wove on, threads of tale and tallow. Elara, eternal in her prime, watched packs rise and roam, children of change, born of bites and brews. Finn's ballads birthed a bardic order, singing her saga from spires to slums. Mira guarded the groves, Grimgut the gates. The heart, embedded in the hearthstone, warmed without end. Nights came still, white cloaks faded to welcome grey. Adventurers sought not glory, but growth, recipes to rival realms, lessons in the lean between man and monster. On full moons, Elara howled not in hunger, but harmony. The forest answered, a chorus of claws and kinship. Wolf's hearth stood, cozy heart of chaos, where every meal was a pact, every patron a potential packmate. And in the old wolf's echo, she heard the truth, the wilds were not curse, but cradle. Feed well, fight fierce, and the world would follow.